Hey guys, I told you I'd hop on here, and I just kind of wanted to explain to you about Aya's condition, um, and why her making it as long as she did was really, it was a miracle. As far as I know, she's the only puppy that's ever made it that long. She's the longest lived puppy with this condition. Um, and two, before I start, I wasn't just solely the only one helping to take care of her. I would have to go to work, and my mom was generous enough and kind enough to help me do it. So Ayah really did have two moms. Um, my mom's camera shy, so she wouldn't want to be in the videos, but I just need to tell her thank you too, because there's not a lot of parents out there that would take time out of their day to do something like that, because she essentially turned into a mother again, and she was um, helping take care of that little baby. And yeah, but I just wanted to hop on and say it wasn't just me. She helped a lot too, and I definitely wouldn't have been able to help Aya as well as I did without her. And also just her being there for the mental support was really important too. So I just wanted to hop on and include that too, so you guys know. And I know in one of the comments, somebody had said to just make sure that I was talking to Aya, and I was. In the videos, I didn't really talk or do anything, but I did sing to her all the time. When I would be feeding her, I would sing to her. When I was giving her a bath, I'd be singing to her, and she would just relax and stuff. So she definitely, um, I know that my voice is comforting to her. So, moving on to what is an acephaly. In the simplest definition, it is underdevelopment of the skull and brain tissue. Um, so you guys could see from the videos that I showed you for Aya, she had no skull. So that little lump that she had on top of her head, that should have been completely covered with a skull, and there was just nothing there. And they normally are only born with the brainstem. I have a picture later on that I can show you. It's unfortunately not a diagram with a dog. I couldn't find one just because the research on anencephaly in dogs is it's not a lot. So I don't have a lot to go off of. I kind of had to go off of stuff that happens with humans too, and I'll show you that diagram. But it's a really good example to show you what her brain should have been developed to and what it most likely was. We'll never know because I didn't take her in for an necropsy to have them look at her. I don't think she deserved to go through that, and so I didn't make that call. But she might have not had very much of her brain, if any at all. It might have just been the brainstem, and so for her to be able to function the way that she did, if she didn't have all of her brain, was phenomenal. To identify this disorder, it's best to take your pet into the vet for checkups and stuff, especially during pregnancies, because they can run tests, or they can say, here, we'll give you this vitamin to put over your dog's food. It's just going to give it a little extra boost, essentially kind of like prenatal vitamins, which are important, when a person's pregnant. This particular mother, she was not taken in for an ultrasound or to the vet because the elderly couple that bred her were following the guidelines of other breeders who essentially said that's not important. You don't need to take your dog to the vet. She'll be fine without it. It's just a waste of money. Well, is it a waste of money to go to your doctor when you're pregnant and have those checkups done monthly? No, it's important because it shows the development. And I think that sorry about that. I hit something, my computer. But I think it's really important that you take the time, if you're going to do this and you're going to be committed to it, you're taking your dog in to get checked, because this easily could have been caught, and at least have a heads up. So, the puppy wasn't sat to the side because they were worried about calling you in the middle of the night and saying, hey, we've got a dog here. Do you want to come look at her? We don't know what's going on. They just sat her to the side for 6 hours. away from mom, which was a good thing to be away from mom, but she also needed food in those first 6 hours to get that colostrum from the mother, but she was just sat to the side. She was really cold. There was no heating source for her, and so she fought through that, which is phenomenal, because when I picked her up, it almost felt like she was stiff. And if you guys have had to deal with, newborns, or finding newborn kittens or something like that, that the mother, something's happened to the mother and she hasn't been there to keep them warm, you'll understand what I'm saying about that. So when I first picked her up, I didn't think that she was going to make it, but she did. She fought, and she was a little fighter right up until the end. But it's just vet checkups, they're important. They, especially for this dog in particular, because it was her first time being a mother, first time she'd ever been pregnant, and I believe she was just barely a year old. She might have been over a year a little bit, but she wasn't very old either. And so, and I don't even think they really changed her feed for her. And again, that's not really their fault. They were following somebody that is supposed to be a breeder, but they don't want to put the time and the money and the effort into making sure that puppies are healthy. They just want to go off of, they've been lucky in the past, so they're going to ride on the coat wings of that and hope that nothing happens. And then, just the absence of a normal skull and whole mass right between the ears, which you guys were able to see that in those videos with Ayah. Treatment is normally, it's going to be right down to euthanasia, is what a vet's going to normally suggest. Mine was kind enough to say, if you feel she's doing good, give her the chance that she deserves. And when the time has come, and that's kind of what happened, is I knew that time had come when I was sitting up with her. And so it was right then that I knew it was time. And I'm just glad that I had a vet that was willing to work with me and work me in, knowing that it was time. So that was really nice of him. But normally these puppies will be stillborn, or they pass within a few hours. And a lot of them will actually, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes they will be astronomically larger. And so there was an article that I read, and a puppy was born with this. It had water retention. It was stillborn, but it was almost 200 grams larger than all the other puppies. And so these birth defects vary, and normally when they do have this birth defect, it's more than just the hole in the top of their head. Normally they can be born with intestines outside of the body. Along with that, they can be born with a cleft palate. When I got her, I checked with a cleft palate. She didn't have that. And, on the outside, everything looked normal. But there could have been something internally that we couldn't see that hadn't developed properly. And looking through cases, the longest puppy that I know to live with this condition was 3 days. And Ayah lived for 8 days. So that's 5 extra days on top of that, which is huge, considering that. What causes this birth defect? It ranges. We all know the environmental factors through any animal or person. If you're extremely stressed, that's going to put stress on the baby, and that can cause issues. Or there are teratogenic effects. Radiation, viruses, toxic substances, maternal disease, etc. So if the mother got sick, which I know she didn't, it could be that. I know they had a kennel they kept her in. It wasn't extremely big, so maybe it could be she didn't get out for enough exercise. She was cooped up for too long. Nobody knows. I'm not going to say exactly what it is, because those people do take care of their dogs. It was just along the lines of breeding. They were following an example of somebody that didn't want to put the time and effort into their dog and just wanted to get cash out of it. And so it's hard to be upset with them, because they were only doing what they were told by these breeders that said that they would help them. And it's unfortunate that happened. And so it could even be she wasn't getting enough nutrients, and so all of the nutrients was going to the puppies, and since A was last, maybe not enough nutrients was getting to that last puppy. And like I said, I have no idea what caused this. And it can be something from certain breeds, can be more at risk for this condition. And the main reason has to do with the skull shape. So I'll use an example of a Chihuahua, and I've got a picture of that on here in a little bit, but their skull is so big, and they are essentially bred to have water on the brain, and that is very, very unfortunate, and it's dangerous to want to breed animals like that. But when we stop and think about it, a lot of these dogs that are teacup dogs, they're bred with deformities that can really cause issues. If you look at your bulldogs, you look at your pugs, you look at all of those breeds that just don't have a normal shaped head, it leads to problems. And it's not just, the development of the skull, this is joints and all of that too. But she was bred to a King Charles Cavalier, and they are known to have this birth defect. Had they, researched into this a little bit, they would have known what is possibly going to happen and what these births are prone to. And that was something that wasn't encouraged either. And again, it wasn't this elderly group's fault. It wasn't their or couple's fault. It was the fault of somebody that said they knew what they were doing, and they led them to believe that going to the vet was a waste of money during a pregnancy. So, but it also can happen in all dogs, and it can be from genetics. We know that sometimes you can have a list of dogs, and there you have clean health, and there's some sort of mutation that happens along the way during development, and it causes something that they've never seen before. And so it could have been that too. It could have been because this was this dog's first time being a mother and first time being pregnant, and she was so young. And so we don't really know, and there's not, like I've said, there's not a lot of research into this type of birth defect. So these next images, they will be graphic. I just wanted to give you guys a heads up. So if you don't want to watch them, or maybe you kind of want to just skim past those pictures, you can, but I'm just giving you a heads up so you're not caught off guard. So this is some examples of Anacephaly. This first puppy that is labeled A with the x-ray, I know there's more going on down here. I'm not 100% sure on reading x-rays or looking at them and knowing what is and isn't normal, unless it's something that really jumps out and grabs my attention. But if you look at the puppy up in the left corner, you can see that bulge on the head, and that one is pretty big. But you can also see when you go down to where the fur line is, you can see how flat that is, and that X-ray B is a really good example to show that underdeveloped skull. And essentially, if there's nothing that's going to be protecting that part of the brain, it's not really going to grow because there's no protection around it. And if we look at the skull on A, you can see that skull is clearly there. You go to B, it's a little less developed, and then C is really underdeveloped. I would say that Ayah was probably around B. She could have been a C, but I most likely want to say that she was B. So she had some sort of development that was starting, and it wasn't completely cut off. And then this is her in the middle, and you can kind of see compared to this puppy, this is almost what she looks like. And this the puppy does have a little small hole between the ears. It's not anything as big as what Ayah had on the top of her head. But on the right side, you can see another dog. This puppy was born normal. The one on the very far right side, the mother just accidentally laid down on it, and so they sent both of them in for comparison, and the one that has Anecephaly lived for 2 days, and then it passed away. And so they kind of went in and they looked at stuff, but you can see, you can kind of just see the difference in the size. And like I said, sometimes they can be really big, and sometimes they can be on the smaller side. So there's no real definite area of that, but you can definitely tell that Ayah's head shape is a lot similar to that puppy that's got that issue, the same issue as her. This is another one. This one is really graphic. Normally, they can be born with bugged eyes to look like this. I know the left eye on Ayah was a little, well, not a little bit, but I could tell that it was quite a bit bigger than the right. And the right side looked a little more normal to me. So I know she probably had a little bit of a bug eye on the left side as far as how bad it was. Since she never opened her eyes, I never got to see if it was extremely bad or if maybe it was just sitting out a little bit more than the right eye. But normally they are born, like I said, with multiple birth defects when this happens. If you look at these skull shapes, so on the left side, this is a Chihuahua. And you can see that big dome skull right there. And underneath that skull, they usually will get a lot of water buildup. And a Chihuahua in general will have a little bit of water on the brain. And so you can imagine if you've got something inside trying to develop that has that type of skull, you might run out of room. And that could be a reason why anencephalies do exist. And I'm just taking a guess here because there's such little research that's done on this disorder that nobody along veterinarian lines really knows what to do. And maybe there haven't been a lot of cases where people have actually brought the puppies in because they're a puppy. They're a newborn, so they see that and they're like, well, we'll leave it with the mother and let it live as long as it can, and just take care of it that way. This middle one is a image of a king cavalier, and that's what she was bred to. And you can kind of see the head almost looks similar to the Chihuahua. It's a little bit different. The eyes are a little bit bigger, but you can just see it's just not a normal skull. And if you look over on the right side, you can see there's a dog skull, like maybe not a lab, I don't know. It could be a lab. But then if you come down and look at the wolf skull, you can see the ridge on the nose isn't quite as prominent as this is. And it's just a little bit more slender towards the back. And so you can see over time how things have evolved, and we've literally been breeding, especially in small breeds, we've been breeding to have these birth defects that, that cause a lot of issues in these dogs. And it's kind of sad to see that. And so I think it's important, if you are breeding, you look in and you research and you understand exactly what issues each breed has. And if there's an issue that you're not willing to step up and take care of, don't breed to that dog. Don't risk having to do that, because if you're not willing to be 100% invested in the pet that's going to be giving you money, because that's what people do to breed with breeding dogs, is they want to make money off of it, then don't do it. It takes time, it is an investment, and you want to make sure that those puppies are healthy if you're going to sell them. You don't want to just sell them to somebody and just think, oh, it's fine. So that's really important, to really just look into the breeds and understand what's going on. This right here is the image I was talking about earlier about the brain development. You can see over on the left side, this is a normal developed brain. And then you have the brain stem. If you come over to the right side, this baby is missing the skull, which is exactly what Ayah had. And then it had underdeveloped brain. And so she could have had a little bit of brain matter. Maybe she had more brain matter than the other puppies did, and that's why she made it so long. But normally they're just born with that brain stem, and that's that little red thing down here. And so it's understandable why normally these dogs don't make it that long. So how common is this birth defect? 1 through 4,600 human babies are born with this condition, and I believe the article had said in the United States. So if you think about that, it's a pretty common issue along the lines of humans. But when I tried, trying to find the statistic for dogs, I couldn't see anything, because it said It's unknown in the vet world because it hasn't been seen very often. Well, it probably hasn't been seen very often because people just won't take, like I said, they're not going to take the time and effort to take that puppy in to get it checked, or even after it's passed, to go in and say, hey, can you look at this puppy and tell me what's wrong with it? And so that's the unfortunate thing about this birth defect is, and it's frustrating too, because there just hasn't been any time and effort put into researching it and understanding it and seeing exactly what does cause it. Um, I feel like it's something that's not really talked about. And I graduated from Utah State with an equine science degree, but we touched bases on all different animals and birth defects, and I never heard anything about an anencephaly or anything about underdevelopment of the brain or anything like that. And I think if this was taught more, for people, especially med students that are going to college, they'd understand it a little bit better. And my vet that I took her to, he said he'd never seen anything quite like what she had on her head, and he didn't know or understand kind of what was going on. And so I do believe that growth that was on top of her head was most likely a tumor. I had said, believe I said yesterday in the video that the tumor had almost looked like it stopped growing. And it was kind of a mushroom cap, and it came down, and I could see something. There was different color flesh underneath there. So it wasn't the same. It wasn't that same skin texture. It was a little bit different. And I think that probably was her brain. And it could have been when her skull was growing because, or not her skull, but maybe where her palate is and underneath that jawline was growing, it started pushing things up, and that could have put pressure on her brain. But like I said, I don't know. I just wanted to make this video to kind of help you guys understand a little bit more what was going on and kind of educate you the best that I could. And I essentially know about as much about this as what I found in the articles, and that's not a lot. And like I had said before, we knew she could hear. She'd cry when things hurt. She was able to move around pretty well. She had that sucking instinct to nurse. She had that. Her bowel function was great. Her urination, everything was. It was just like a puppy that was born with no birth defects, up until we got to that 7th night, and that's when things started going downhill. And that's why I think that, maybe it was a fact that she reached a certain point in her development, and because of lack of skull and lack of brain matter, maybe things just started shutting down. It's really hard to tell, but I know this is something that I personally will probably keep tabs on and try and see if there's more about it. Maybe reach out to some of my professors. I have reached out to one. I haven't heard back from him yet about it, but just to see if they know anything about it that would help educate me more and help me understand it a little bit more. But I just want to say thanks again. I'm sorry about being so emotional yesterday. It's definitely comes in waves. I had a good cry this morning, and that's probably going to be happening for the next week, 2 weeks. I don't know, but Ayah was really special, and I appreciate you guys coming on here with the support and asking questions and giving me advice and all of that. So if you guys do have any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer anything. If there's something you feel that I missed in this presentation to you guys, you can go ahead and put it down in the comments and just, ask away. I'm willing to answer whatever I can. And even, if that professor gets back to me, I might maybe try and call and talk to him on the phone about it a little bit more, meet him in person and go over it, and then maybe share with you guys what I found out. But this is all that I could dig up, and I think it informs you guys really well about what was going on, and the fact that she did live 8 days. And I know for humans, the longest babies to ever live with this condition was almost 4 years. And we know how long people normally live, and we know how short of a lifespan a dog has. And so, you know, for her, that probably was about 4 years, living those 8 days. Or, you know, maybe dialed down to 2 years or whatever, but she made it 5 more days than any other puppy has that I know of. And so I just wanted to share that with you guys. And like I said, if you guys have any questions or comments, go ahead and share them with me, and I would be happy to answer them. Thanks, guys.